am so happy to finally get this video up and loaded. I had a lot of requests of how I painted the red bricks in my living room, but I'm first going to show you how I painted bricks in my dining room. I also changed out both of the mantels. One was a brand new one and the other was from the 1800s from my childhood home. So this is the dining room when we first bought our house. It has a 1940s mantel on it. It just didn't appeal to me with the beehive oven. This is an after view with the new mantel and the bricks I painted out. And I just wanted to show you the before and after before I go into the process. So we've got a photo coming up here again. That is the dining room, and you'll see the 1940s mantel once again. To me, it just was off scale, off proportion, and it didn't work for me. So one morning while my mister was still up sleeping, I brought out my tools and I actually ripped it off the wall, and I sent him this little picture text before I came downstairs so he would know what type of mischief I was in. You can't really see it here, but the bricks on this fireplace were added on several different times. I had a mason look at it and he did confirm that this fireplace was added to over the years. So there was different colored mortar, and some of the bricks were painted, some of the mortar was red, some was white. So I had to get working on this to make it what I wanted it to be. All right, so in a second, here's another photo just from a different angle showing it. What I did was I took measurements and then worked with a local lumber yard, and they created a mantel for me that mimicked the one that I brought from my childhood home, and you'll see that one later. But I couldn't have been more pleased. So I'm going to talk about this photo a little bit more. Once again, it has the new mantel around it, but this is before I started painting, and you can see above the firebox there are no grout lines. So that's where, for some reason, once again I called it grout, the mortar was red. And to the right, for some reason, the bricks were painted red. And then on the left-hand side, there was a lot of mismatch. And I think I have a close-up of that coming up soon. And then you can see under the pumpkins in the beehive oven section, the bricks were kind of whitewashed. Some of the mortar was bright white, some of it's red. So I don't know what they were thinking when they kept doing all the different changes, but that's all right. I have paintbrush and paint in hand, and I figured if I didn't like what I did, I would probably paint it all out black or whitewash it. So I wasn't afraid to get started. If you take on a project like this, kind of think it through if you're okay with painting it out completely if you don't like it. So coming up soon are going to be 3 different stages so you can see the before, middle, and after of the faux finishing. So here's before, middle, and after, and I really liked how this came out. So I'm going to try to show you the steps that I did. And here's just another view before I started painting it. And then here is an after view, and now I will show you how I did this. All right, so let's get into the painting. I use acrylic paint. You can get them at your craft store. For this project, I used a black, a brown umber, and very important is extender. You can use water, but extender makes it more fluid to work with and actually makes it see-through, and you can do it in layers and get deeper and deeper. All right, and then you do mix it all together, and I'm doing what is called a dry rubbing technique here. Oh, and you can see on the left side the vertical line of mortar. That's what I wanted to get rid of, and I'll show you that later. But this dry rubbing technique, you can do it in layers. I'm focusing on all of the bricks just so I can have a uniform color throughout. And since the bricks were different, it did soak up the color a little bit differently here and there, but it worked out. I'm focusing on the edge of the bricks over the firebox because over the years, usually that would be a little bit darker, and I focused on that. And the white line above, that's how far down the other mantel was. So I was so pleased to get more brick exposed here. And I will take care of that line a little bit later with some other painting technique. All right, and now on the other part here, I wanted to point out that at one point This probably had cabinetry hiding the beehive oven. So I had a lot of extra work here trying to make that all blend together. And once again, you can see all the different bricks that were used, the mortar colors. Um, once again, it's just crazy. I wish I knew why and when they did this. So once again, I'm using the dry rub technique and trying to get everything as uniform as possible. Then I will go back and do some other layers just to make it all work well together. And when I say layers, think of it as like when you do your makeup. First, you put on the moisturizer, then foundation, sometimes highlighter, then your blush. And when you first do it in stages, it doesn't look quite right, but when you're done, it looks complete. And it's the same here with the bricks. You just got to do different layers, keep working at it until you like it. Keep taking a step back. And what I'm doing here is I actually put extender directly on the rag just so I could use up some of the paint that's still in there. I want to just wash it out. And once again, I'm just trying to get these bricks to have a little more cohesive look so they all look the same. Right here, I'm pointing out that that one layer of bricks matches inside, and I was very pleased with it. And here I am, I'm just pointing out the first brick I started with. These bricks, since they were different, it was a little bit more porous, so I wanted to see what I was getting for color. Here I am now finally working on the mortar that was a lot brighter on this side than the other side. But once again, I did it over the whole fireplace. And this is my same mixture that I had before, but I added a lot more extender so that it was very transparent, and I wanted to see how I liked it as I went. So you'll see here that I'm working my way around, and I'm using a cotton swab to get into a lot of the nooks and crannies that I could not get into with the rag or actually even the tip of my finger. So you can use a paintbrush, which you'll see later in the video I used for the other fireplace, but the rag and the cotton swab worked perfectly here. So you'll see that I'm working my way down. I'm actually rubbing on some more of the bricks and getting into that mortar. So I'm just going to keep this going here for a bit. And while this finishes through, I'm not sure if I've mentioned in the past, at least here on videos, but I used to do a lot of different types of faux painting for clients, whether it was marbleizing, stripes, making things look like granite. So this was fun for me. And like I said before, I was prepared to paint this out completely if I didn't like how it came out, but I am pleased with it. So as of now, it's a keeper. You'll see the end result soon. But in a moment, I'm going to be showing you how I fixed all those white paint lines left from the previous mantle. So I used a buff with the umber. I did not use an extender at this point because I couldn't even sand these lines off. I tried sanding, I tried using a putty knife, and I didn't want to damage the brick. So I am now going to just paint it out, and I can see I don't like my grout color lines here. Once again, I'm showing the white line and my brown nails, but I'm going to use the same paint that I just showed you, which for my purposes again was the brown umber mixed with the buff or a cream color. So once again, just going over these lines, and this is also before I did a lot of the grout makeover. So mentioned I didn't like what I had before for the grout, so when I stood back, I wanted to make it once again more cohesive everywhere. So I mixed the buff with extender and I dry rubbed it into the grout lines all over the fireplace so they all looked the same. Once again, they were very different all over. So in a moment, I'm going to show you some of the afters as I step back. And let's see, here's the before first. You can see the different colors at the top and sides, and this is the after. And once again, the photo I showed you before in the other angle with all of the different bricks and colors, and here's the after. I realize this look is not for everybody. I'm very pleased how it came out. Now I need to work on the bricks on the floor since those are even newer than what was used on the fireplace itself because the flooring was changed a few times I could tell here in the home. So I'll most likely paint those out a black and then do a satin poly over it or flat finish just to keep it protected from when I wash it or walking over it. All right, so for those who are still with me, and if I haven't bored you, I'm now going to show you the other fireplace that I did using a mantle that came from my childhood home. I'll share more on that later, but this is the fireplace that's in our living room, and once again, it's this 1940-ish mantle. Oh, yes, subscribe. I'm going to show how I made this chandelier here look like black wrought iron that is now in the dining room. But the fireplace in the living room, it was just out of scale and proportion for me. So I wish I showed you how I took this off a little more detailed, but I scored all of the lines around the edge and then I used a putty knife to kind of cut into the wall and then I had to pry it off gently so I didn't ruin the wall board behind it. But it came off fairly easily once I saw there were just a couple nails holding it on. Moving along here, I did try using brushes for the dry brush technique I talked about earlier, but once I started, I realized I do prefer using a rag, especially for a project like this. So I started with the firebox and I did my antiquing over the top as if it was aged over the years. And then I started going in around the edges of the bricks and then I started working on my grout slash mortar lines. And feel free to comment below if you call it grout or mortar. I did look it up. And I'm just going to go and call it mortar because even though I have laid bricks in the past and I know it's the smooth tool to smooth it out, but I'm not going to get technical. Here you're going to get a little peek of the mantle that I saved from my childhood home. I carried it from home to home with me and even my storefronts in my studios. On the left, you will see that I did paint out the mortar. On the right, it is unpainted, just so you can see the before and after. And then you'll see now a finished product. And I did use different paint colors than I used for the dining room. Once again, I just went with my gut and what I liked, and I was trying to match some of the inner bricks. I still have to do the floor. And don't forget to subscribe to see the chandelier makeover. And here is the after again. And I thought I'd show you one of my holiday shots because it shows it head on.